What is up, fight fans, and welcome to UFC Preview on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source of news and entertainment in mixed martial arts for almost 20 years. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. I'm always this fired up. I have ADHD. I have hyperactivity. I have everything that's never gone away from the time I popped out of the womb, so forgive me for that, or enjoy it, whatever the case may be. We got Jeff Cain on the other side of the country. Our crew is in Vegas for UFC Fight Night, Font versus Garbrandt, and if the numbers are telling us the truth, guys, you guys have no love for No Love and for Rob Font. Let's get those numbers up. Hey, man, Cody Garbrandt had a crazy year last year. You know what I'm saying? This dude literally had a terrible case of COVID. He had blood clots. He had all sorts of things going on. He had a kidney infection when he was training for his last fight against Rafael Assunção last year. Ended in a big-time walk-off knockout for Cody No Love Garbrandt. So Garbrandt and Font this weekend, plus a huge women's division fight with title implications headlining at UFC Fight Night in Vegas. Jeff Cain, but so much going on in the world of mixed martial arts. You guys see the title. Jake Paul is headed to ShowTime. We got Derek Lewis knocking out a would-be car thief. And Beneil Dariush finally got his Cecil. But there's Cody No Love Garbrandt at the media day. The beard's coming in full. He's got the family. And I do want to start with Cody. And thanks to our crew for switching that up for me. And we're gonna go up the Jake Paul thing. But I've known Cody a long time. Jeff, I've interviewed him multiple times on my show as he was coming up. And I've seen such a change in him. Cody really got, the becoming a champion really got to his head. He really changed a lot as a person. And I noticed it. And just on my level of interaction. But, he went through the big win against Dominic Cruz, the first alpha male fighter to finally break through and beat Dom and really dominated him at the end of 2016. We thought we'd see the No Love era for quite some time. 2 violent losses to TJ Dillashaw. Then Pedro Munoz knocked him out on a counter. Cody No Love has been through a lot of crap the last couple of years, not the least of which was a very scary year medically and personally, especially for a young father with a family, never mind a fighter and a champion, a young father with a family. So he's got a lot of tread on the tires that's been worn off. He's got a lot of mileage on that engine now. He's a completely different dude in so many ways than he was a little less than 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, when he took the belt from Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, if you say so, man. I don't know Cody other than the alpha male connections and whatever. Cody's been humbled, right, a little bit. He got spanked by Dillashaw, a rival, twice, and then he had serious health issues last year. And that'll put life in perspective alone. Outside the fight game, forget everything else. Whenever you're facing blood clots and you have pneumonia and, your future, your fighting future in your career doesn't seem to mean all that much when you're sucking for air, and so props to Cody for getting back. He's coming off that one win, snap that losing streak. We'll see what he does this weekend, man. Cody's got fast hands, knockout power. Cody's always been a phenomenal fighter. It's he gets himself in trouble in there a lot of times, but we'll see if he's a changed fighter in that regard.
You want to know how tough Cody No Love Garbrandt is for all my football fans out there. And I don't know what's going on with the chat. I can't pull up the tab for the chat for some reason. So I apologize if you're in the chat and you're waiting for us. I don't know what's going on there, but I'll get that figured out. I'm technically clueless sometimes, guys. My fault. But if you want to know how tough Cody No Love is, his parents were separated because of domestic abuse when he was a kid. So he had to deal with that. He has a brother named Zach. They started boxing as a young kid. He was a wrestler, didn't even wrestle his last 2 years of high school, Jeff, and got offers from Penn State and Rutgers, was going to go to Michigan State to wrestle, despite not wrestling his last 2 years of high school. Think about that. Those are elite top 5, 10 programs in the country. And without wrestling his last 2 years, he was going to those. And on top of that, Jeff, Cody No Love Garbrandt, 32-0 as an amateur boxer, a big-time amateur boxer. But if you know anything about Ohio, if you know anything about the Ohio mentality, everyone from Ohio loves to fight, but they love football, Jeff. It is the biggest football state other than maybe arguably Texas and Florida. Where am I going with this? Cody No Love Garbrandt, the guy who almost fought for a flyweight title, the guy who's been a bantamweight champion at 135 pounds, was an all-state middle linebacker in Ohio. Think about what it takes to be an all-state middle linebacker in Ohio, and then think about doing it at 145, 150 pounds. The guy's tough as nails. He has been from birth.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, there's no question how tough Cody Garbrandt is. I mean, Ohio, I like to fly over Ohio. I'll say that.
Yeah, me too.
you know, uh,
Me too.
Ohio's a different place altogether, man. I've spent a lot of time in Ohio. Cincinnati's basically a part of Kentucky, right? Their airport is in Kentucky.
Skyline Chili, Jeff.
Yeah,
That's one good thing
yeah,
out of Cincy. Skyline Chili.
yeah. I mean, I guess everybody's from there. So certainly talks about how great Skyline Chili is. Um, it'll
We had one in
definitely.
Florida. That's one thing
Oh,
about living in Florida for years. You have the best restaurants from every. We had a Permanente Brothers from Pittsburgh, Skyline Chili from Cincinnati. So you kind of got the best. But yeah, tough Ohio dude. You're looking at right there.
Yeah, and Cody's right. He's still right there in the rankings. His losses weren't bad. He's got a win under his belt, and if he beats Font, man, he's right there in the title talks again. And we'll see what happens. Because we still got Dillashaw coming back. I mean, that's a crazy division right now.
July 24th, Sandhagen Dillashaw, they're targeting. I wanted to say this too about Cody No Love is one of those fast trackers, man. He came up so quickly. He had 3 fights in Pinnacle FC in Pittsburgh. He had a Gladiators of the Cage fight and an NAAFS, and then he made his UFC debut. He was 5-0. He only had 5 pro fights when he made his UFC debut. Such a knockout artist and a headhunter. The TKO over Marcus Brimage. And then, of course, 4 of his first 5 wins were by knockout or TKO. I'll never forget the Thomas Almeida one. I interviewed him before that fight, and Augusto Mendez too, Tankino, because Tankino's an Arizona guy and a BJJ black belt. Well, Cody knocked him out. Cody knocked out Thomas Almeida, and at the time, Almeida was the favorite, and those were 2 young up-and-coming guys. Cody's, 23, 24 at this time. He beats Dominic Cruz at 25 years old to win the title, and, maybe things got to him a little bit. He had the back-to-back TKO losses to Dillashaw, one in the second round, one in the first round. I was at both of those, one of them, the second one. The one in L.A. was after Cejudo beat Mighty Mouse and won the belt, and it was Cody was winning that fight. It was a knee and punches that he got caught with. But as was the case in both Dillashaw fights and the Munoz fight, Cody was winning all 3 of those fights, Jeff. He got a little crazy in there and started throwing wild shots, and it got him knocked out by counters both times. And he actually could have beaten Dillashaw in that first round of the first fight. So it's not like he was dominated in any of those fights. He was never completely outclassed by anyone. And then he comes back and just ended Rafael Assunção last year. So that ended the 3-fight skid. But even those 3 losses, Jeff, he was like Justin Gaethje in the Alvarez fight, in the Poirier fight. He was winning those fights at one point in time and looked very close to finishing the first Dillashaw fight and the Munoz fight before he was finished. So he's been a little bit more patient, with his striking. He's become a little bit more calm, a little bit more pragmatic in there, and not as wild. And it's a big, big thing because in there mentally, you lose your marbles a little bit. You get a little crazy in there. You don't keep your cool and your composure. That works against you, and that's something that he's really fought to overcome, and he really did a great job of that. It was a completely different dude in there against Assunção. Completely different guy.
Yeah, I mean, the Cody style's gonna. A lot of people are winning fights until they're not. Cody's style is going to lend to that, right? Cody stays in the pocket and throws bombs, and you stand in the pocket and throw bombs. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. You're going to get clipped. Dillashaw landed the head kick, and then the punches, and that's just Cody's game. What's strange about it is if Cody changes that game too much, then he's not going to be appealing to the public. And so while he has not put himself in the bad spots and overextend and do things like that he used to do. He still plays that game, man. He's the gunslinger, right? It's who pulls the trigger faster and who's more accurate. And so you're going to see Cody probably, have these sort of results where he knocks out, and then somebody gets him,
Yeah, no doubt. And before we talk about Rob Fonten, we're going to move on and talk about Jake Paul going to Showtime, Derek Lewis, Dariush, a lot of things in the news. But we do have Cody No Love talking about his experience with COVID, and we have that clip ready to roll. So let's play that right now on MMA Weekly.
Well, I don't like to run. Cycling's cool. You can go a lot of places cycling. Where we're at in Sacramento, American River Trail, there's a lot of bike paths and trails. So I started cycling, and that's what my doctor said was like, as much as I'm cycling, and we were doing, 100-mile rides. Wow. We were putting the work in, it was, 5-6 hours of just nonstop, just grinding on that bike, and that's all I could really do because I had vertigo. So I couldn't really do much MMA. I could do a little bit of it until I started having the onsets of the vertigo and the spins. So the bike, I was just there and just pedaling the legs and the heart and the lungs. And that's what he said, like, I was able to keep my lungs so open that during that, like, a lot of people that had pneumonia like I had it would have been hospitalized on a ventilator. He goes, and the crazy thing is that we were cycling, but we had the cow fires. The smoke index was so heavy. Yeah. So I just thought it was because we were out there riding, an index of 400 sometimes. We try to get up in the morning, 5, 6 in the morning, and go before the smoke rolled in. So I just thought that's why I was having like the wheezing and the shortness of breath from the air quality in Sacramento during that time. So it was just like, then I tested positive for COVID, and I was like, oh man, that should make sense why I felt like this. I'm like, man, I wasn't trying to, Danny, she always says, like when I get a flu or something, like I'm a big baby about it. So I wasn't trying to complain about it, but man, I was hurting. This shit hurt. I didn't want to complain about shit. And then I had COVID, and I looked back, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah. A couple times, man, there were some nights that I was like really, really in pain with it. Like it really took its toll. But then again, I was training for a world title, so I didn't want to take any time off, and I was just so frustrated, like, why would, what was going on? And obviously testing positive for COVID, understanding like, all right, well, it's COVID, and this is a virus that's in my body that's affected it so, so greatly that I have to, take the measures of getting healthy.
Wow. I mean, just hearing that, and then, you hear the story of Jason Tatum with the Celtics saying he needs inhaler. I mean, perfectly healthy young athlete getting sick like that, and I'm sure the air quality didn't help him much, Jeff, but I mean, that's a lot to fight through. And he had kidney infection too. He'd train for 10 days and then go get pumped full of antibiotics, and he still came out and fought that way against the Sun Sao. He's a generational talent. To win the title at 25, to only have 5 fights before he hits the UFC, we haven't even seen the best of Cody Garbrandt yet. If you go by history, Jeff, and you go by when fighters usually hit their prime, he's not even there yet. And he's already been a world champ. He's already fought the biggest names in the sport. And the title fight he was talking about, in case you guys forgot, was going to be against Davison Figueiredo, which is why Moreno got the shot, because Cody couldn't fight him. So now you're going to see that rematch, which is coming up in Glendale, and we have a big announcement about that on the show today also. But we are talking about a generational talent with the ability to be a dominating champion for years still in front of him. People forget that. Cody Garbrandt's still only 29 years old.
Yeah, Cody's still, he probably hasn't hit his prime yet. I mean, the most dangerous thing for a fighter, Cody was on blood thinners for a long time for the blood clots due to COVID. And so you can't take contact. You can't, a body shot, you get kicked to the body, man, you got internal bleeding. I mean, I've been on blood thinners. You've got to be, you can't shave. That might be why his beard's going so great that, the doctors tell you not to shave. You can't afford to.
You'll bleed for an hour if you shave, right? More.
Yeah. Yeah. And
you're a hemophiliac.
Yeah. And so that's what it was. Not the cardio, of course, but Cody couldn't do anything because he was on the blood thinners. I mean, you can't risk an injury because the injury is just magnified by the blood thinners. And so he's doing the cycling. Here's my joke of the day. TJ Dillashaw has been cycling for a long time.
Oh, this is why we love you,
Cody.
Jeff Cain.
You're welcome, Cody.
You're welcome, Cody. Cody loves you now. Jeff Cain is now Cody Garbrandt's favorite media member of all time, man. And you're mine too, Jeff, for that, by the way. I keep trying to beg Jeff to come on the road and come out and see me in Glendale, Arizona for UFC 263. But, man, we've got I'll tell you what, Rob Font, and I want to hit on him real quick. That didn't come out right. I don't want to hit on him. No offense to anybody who may want to hit on him or may not want to hit on him. But you can't say anything in this world, right? You can't talk about anything. But we don't want to talk about anything other than what we do. We live in the toy department of life. Rob Font, same thing, man. He's 18-4. He's got 12 finishes, 8 knockouts, 6 by submission. His losses are to Munoz, Asuncao, and Lineker. And Lineker was in 2016, Munoz in 2017. He hasn't lost since July of 2018 at UFC 226, and that was against Asuncao. Since then, he's beaten Bellator's flyweight champion, Sergio Pettis, Ricky Simon, and Marlon Moraes, and he dominated Marlon Moraes in December of last year. And when you and I were doing our show, and that was right after we first started doing these shows, you were really high on Rob Font. We both were. We were talking about a guy who's ready to make a title run. We wondered who his next opponent would be. Well, here it is in Cody No Love Garbrandt. So 2 super high-level fighters. This could easily be a title fight. They're that good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough matchup for both guys. Font
Yep.
says Cody's catching him at a tough time. Cody, after this long layoff, this is a tough fight for Cody, man. This is a tough fight for Rob. This is a crazy fight. It can go either way. Both guys are extremely confident in their strike, particularly their striking ability. Yeah, man. I mean, this is kind of sort of a top-heavy fight card for sure.
They're 3-4.
With the
3-4 in the division. Chandler and Oliveira were 3-4, and they just fought for the belt. Jan and Sterling are going to have that rematch. Sandhagen is fighting Dillashaw, coming back, the forever cycling Dillashaw, the cycling champion, like Lance Armstrong. But I'll say this. Dillashaw fits somewhere in that top 3 to 5 for sure. I think TJ is top 3 when he's at his best. So this is a fight right here, and Dillashaw's fighting Sandhagen. People are vying for a title shot. There's no guarantee that Dillashaw-Sandhagen winner is going to get a title shot. There's no guarantee that it won't be Font or Garbrandt. So it's more than likely that it will be the winner of Dillashaw and Sandhagen who gets it. But the winner of this fight could easily hop in there and get a title shot in their next fight. So there is a ton at stake in this main event. And it's a great fight. They're both incredible fighters who could knock each other out in the blink of an eye. Font could also submit him. He's pretty good at jiu-jitsu. But when I look at this fight, Jeff, there are so many ramifications, and this could be a title shot opportunity for either guy, depending on how the cards fall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the loser of this fight's going to drop. He's not going to be near a title anytime in the near future, and the winner's going to be right there on the cusp. TJ Dillashaw is Cody's worst enemy, because if TJ gets there, then Cody, he's lost to him twice, and so that sort of takes the luster away. So Cody might be racing against time to get to the title shot before TJ does, because if TJ gets there before Cody, then that could really change Cody's future at the top of that division. Cody gets there first, then the third fight doesn't mean it. You sell that easily because Cody's there. It's TJ that's trying to knock Cody off instead of the other way around. This has huge implications. Then with Font, it's a new person at the top of the division, right? He could be in a title fight or a title eliminator fight in his next outing for sure.
All right, there you go. And we're excited. We're going to give you our picks at the end of the show. We got about 15 minutes left. Jim Grieshaber, call me Grease. Jeff Cain, UFC preview right here on MMA Weekly. And Jeff, we got the fight night this weekend. We got a pretty good co-main event as well. And I mean, that's got title ramifications on the female side. And, really looking forward to seeing Jan get in there against Carla in the strawweight division. And that division, speaking of loaded divisions, we'll give you our picks. We got the Hermanson-Shabazian fight too, which I think is going to be really good. Those two guys are outstanding fighters. So, as always, you got Felicia Spencer, who had fought Cyborg at one point on this card. And, so we got some things going. My buddy Bruno Gustavo da Silva, go get him, Bruno, the Bulldog. Love my buddy there, part of the Cejudo crew in Arizona. But, Jeff, when I look at this title, I had to laugh, man, because we played Dana's rant the other day about Triller. And you know what? Triller is dead without Jake Paul.
You think
Triller
I
just
care what
lost
Triller
for a cash
thinks?
cow. Here's Dana.
Sick and tired of them mentioning UFC.
I don't even take their calls. This idiot calls me every day. Text me every day. Please answer my call. Please talk to me. Why won't you talk to me? Because I don't give a fuck about you. Do your thing.
There you go. And no one else does now either, since you lost Jake Paul. And that's a big loss for Triller, man. I mean, and I like how Cavanaugh tries to put a spin on it. He told ESPN yesterday, Jeff, that they wish Paul well, and he says, quote, "We've gone the distance with him that we can go." And Paul being anything other than undercard for us would change it from novelty to unacceptable, whatever. But the point is, Jake Paul was Triller at that point in time, and they're dead. They're done.
I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, that Jake Paul was on a buried preliminary card fight of Mike Tyson on Triller fighting an NBA player. He's not their cash cow. He's just the one that is going to benefit the most from it. But yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson wants to fight me tomorrow. It's going to sell close to 1 million pay-per-views, and Triller's going to put it on.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you there. I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to tell you that Jake Paul had a lot to do with those numbers, because then you look at what he did against Ben Askren. Those numbers were huge.
You're wrong.
But then I have the next fight to tell you that I'm right.
No,
Mike Tyson wasn't on the next one.
I have the
undisputed
pay-per-view king. I have the undisputed pay-per-view king. Period. And you're trying to tell me
in the 90s, in the 80s.
Well, he was headlining that event, and Triller put it on, and we didn't tune in and do a live show for Jake fucking Paul. We did for Mike Tyson.
No, we didn't. We did.
And
Mike Tyson
is there, and Mike Tyson is a bigger draw than Jake Paul. And that's as simple as that. Jake Paul, he can go over there to ShowTime and do. ShowTime's going to have to put him in there with a real boxer. That's going to be their conundrum. This might not have been a good move for Jake Paul, because at Triller he could continue to fight, YouTube sensations and former NBA players and retired wrestlers, and then maybe an auto mechanic. But over here, he's actually going to have to fight a pugilist. He's going to have to actually fight a boxer. And
I love the word pugilist. I love that word. We are going to see. And so this is not me dissing Mike Tyson. I don't think Tyson was responsible for as many of those numbers and buys as people think he was. I really don't. I think Jake Paul was a big part of that, because then you look at the Askren numbers and they were through the roof. These kids have so many followers, Jeff. Their videos on YouTube have 20, 30, 50 million views, man. Think about that. Mike Tyson doesn't have 50 million views on his podcast, not even close. So when you look at what Jake Paul and Logan Paul have done on social media, Logan Paul talks his way into a fight with Floyd Mayweather for one reason only, because they have so many millions of followers across the social media platforms. So when I look at Triller now, how many times can you watch Tyson roll in there against whomever? It was going to be Holyfield. Now it's Holyfield Lewis. I don't want to watch 50-year-old guys fight anymore. It's a novelty. It's a circus act. It's going to wear thin. It's going to wear down. But I can't wait, to speak to your point, to see Tyson get back in there and headline a fight card, to see how many buys he gets, because I guarantee you it won't be as many as the Jones fight. And the more he fights, the fewer it will be. I mean, he's an old man. I don't want to watch. I watched The Last Dance. I can't believe I'm a failure as a father. Last night was the first time my 18-year-old son watched The Last Dance, and he was gone for a year in college. I go, how do you have a Netflix sub? You're in your dorm 20 hours a day, and you didn't watch Last Dance? Are you kidding me? I watched The Last Dance, and I love it. But I don't want to see Michael Jordan come back and play Charles Barkley one-on-one now. I don't want to see Shaq play against Hakeem now. I don't want to see, I don't want to see Dan Marino and John Elway now.
Your options are to watch Mike Tyson at 50 years old, or to Michael Jordan at his age, or to watch Justin Bieber, who's never played fucking basketball, never accomplished anything other than being a personality, entertain. And so I don't understand that point. You're like, I don't want to see these old guys because they're not talented anymore. They're old and washed up. Well, I don't want to see these YouTube fuckers because they were never talented at anything to begin with.
Oh, so, I'm not saying, I want to clear that up right now. I'm not saying I want to watch Jake Paul either. Not at all. Not one bit.
I mean, I want to see him, fight. Let's fight. Let's get him in there with Garbrandt, talk about Garbrandt.
I want people to care as much about Garbrandt and Font as they care about Jake Paul. That's what I want, but I'm living in a dreamland.
Well, it's just freak shows, that's just what we've become. We're a TMZ society now. Right, everything is
thanks, Harvey.
It's all about drama. It has nothing to do. We care more about the Olympian, what the Olympian does to fall from grace, than we do about what the Olympian did to win gold. And that's where we are, which is freaking crazy in my book. But it is what it is. That's what the world has turned to. And so we can either bitch about it or kind of latch on and say, okay, I guess if that's what people want to see, provide it for them. And I'm sure that's what we're going to do. Showtime's been interested in the Paul brothers for a while. Like, they've been talking about them for a minute. And they recognize their social media following, and they were just waiting to see what the hell was going to happen with Triller. I'll say this. I'm glad that Showtime, because that last Triller event was so friggin' unprofessional, that if Jake Paul does want a future in boxing, he can't stay with Triller. You can't stay with that. You can't stay with that outlet.
Although they did sign Teofimo Lopez though, Jeff, and he's a legit champion. He just beat Lomachenko, so he's one of the best boxers in the world, and they have him. and he's going to headline against Kambosos on June 19th.
Who's that? Triller?
Yeah, Teofimo Lopez. I mean, he can't draw ants to a picnic, but he's a great fighter. And that's the problem with boxing. Boxing sucks. I was the play-by-play announcer with Ray Flores and Sean Wheelock for Roy Jones Jr. Boxing for 2 years. I produced the shows, put the whole crew together. We had 1.5 million viewers on national TV, on beIN Sports, and it still sucked. No one knows who these fighters are. No one cares. And this speaks volumes about the shithole that boxing has put itself in, Jeff, because no one cares about the real fighters. They can't make stars of Bob Arum's. Forget Bob Arum. I mean, he's in his 90s. There's nobody coming through. Eddie Hearn, you know what I mean? And you look at Al Heyman. But at the end of the day, that's why Floyd Mayweather is still getting huge money. That's why De La Hoya is coming back and Tyson's coming back, and they're getting so many viewers because boxing has dug itself into such a hole, man. There's nothing there. There's nothing there in this sport. There are very few guys that you could even. Canelo's one of them. There are no stars in boxing. So for Showtime, with a proud boxing history, not as proud as HBO's, to do this and sign Jake Paul to be a quote-unquote legitimate fighter, pay him $10 million with upside, for them to do that, it just shows you where boxing is right now. There aren't stars in boxing. Boxing has gone off the cliff, man. Boxing's done. The UFC came along. MMA came along. It's a much better sport. The numbers dictate that. You look at the top pay-per-views of all time, 90% of them are UFC. I mean, it's just a different world, and boxing dug its own grave, and I don't think they're getting out of it. And this signing, to me, of Jake Paul, this kid, and he's smart. I give him props. He's got balls of steel. He's going out there and fighting. He can actually box, and we'll see how good of a boxer he is as he tries to climb through the ranks in boxing, and he's serious about it. So good for him. But the fact that they're paying him this kind of money shows you how few marketable boxers there are out there, and they can't make money with any of them. So they're throwing their money at this kid, and that's sad. That's really fucking sad. It breaks my heart as a lifelong boxing fan. But times change, people change, life changes, and that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, there's only certain amount of stars in any sport, you know. But look, boxing has suffered in MMA rose, but you know, it's a complicated story. You know, it's easy to say, hey, MMA took over, they were more exciting. No, MMA was cheaper to invest in, right? It's hard to get into boxing, especially at the time that MMA took off. And MMA was on Spike TV with the promotion paying for the production, and so you know it's a complicated issue on why MMA took off, and part of it, and a big reason why, is because it was cheaper to invest in. It was cheaper to put on. It was easier to do. You know, whenever you have all these boxers arguing over who the hell they're going to fight and paydays and the size of gloves and the size of rings and how many rounds it is, Dana White had an Ultimate Fighter, fighters fighting for free in that first season. You know, and so you know, the lengths that you're willing to go will definitely push you, you know, to places. Unprecedented places. But yeah, look, I used to be a huge boxing fan. I can't watch boxing anymore. Boxing is totally boring to me. It's
boring.
It's almost. And look, this isn't an MMA guy going crazy on boxing. I was a boxing guy before I was an MMA guy. I love the sweet science, man. Whenever you have
me too,
two really good boxers in there, man, it's art. It's freaking art, but it's not. It's changed away from that, man. I mean, you can't go back and watch those old Ali fights, man. I mean, come on. But I will say that it's kind of boring and it's archaic to me. Like, I watch two boxers and I'm like, wow, they got big pillows on their hands. They can only use their hands. And
you're like, take them down. Clinch. Oh shit, I'm watching boxing.
Yeah, and they clinch. Yeah, they clinch. Left, you know,
kick them. Oh
hit with,
shit.
Yeah, and you get hit with one shot, then you clinch. Time up. And it's just sometimes frustrating to watch, right? I don't feel like boxers have the entertainers that they used to have. You know, when we grew up in the 90s, you know, you can say what you want about Oscar De La Hoya. He was entertaining in there. Macho Camacho was entertaining in there. Prince was entertaining. You know, and now who's entertaining in boxing? It's just boring. You know, and Mike Tyson, I guess, is your entertainment. You know, you got to go back to the 90s. You're right about that.
And you've had the WBO and the WBA and the IBF, and you know, I mean, it's like there were so many champions and they never fought each other, and you know, Mayweather and Pacquiao delayed that fight for so damn long. I didn't even care about it by the time they finally fought. Mayweather never really had that big-time rival. I mean, even De La Hoya had some rivals as he was coming through. I felt like Oscar De La Hoya was really the last huge star in boxing. Mayweather became a big star after De La Hoya did, but De La Hoya was a much bigger star than Floyd. Floyd just did a better job promoting himself and making the money and not giving the money to the promoter, buying himself out of the contract with Arum, and became an enormous superstar. But you're right, Jeff. Gone are the days. Mike Tyson, global sensation as the heavyweight champion of the world, late 80s, early 90s. Muhammad Ali, one of the top three I watched. I mentioned The Last Dance, watching it last night. Michael Wilbon said this. 3 athletes that transcended sports on the highest of levels and became global celebrities: Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali created that for boxing. He made boxing huge. Muhammad Ali made boxing huge. And since then, they've gone off that cliff. It started with Don King and Bob Arum, and their fighters not fighting each other, and the sport's crooked and the sport's shady. And you can't get, I mean, look, I whenever I shake, I fist bump boxing promoters. I don't shake their fucking hand. I have to check my pockets. I'm not shaking a boxing promoter. It's as crooked and slimy and dirty as the day is long. And I just worked in it for 2 years with Roy Jones Jr. Boxing. And I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, boxing is fucked. It's dirty. It's grimy. And if you think UFC fighters don't get paid a lot and get taken advantage of, then you don't really know what boxers go through, because it's worse in boxing. If they even get their money, if the people even get paid at the end of the night by these promoters, it's crooked, it's greasy, it's slimy, and there's no comparison. I've worked a lot of MMA promotions and companies compared to boxing. There's no comparison between the two. But the biggest thing, Jeff, the fans don't know the ins and outs of the business side necessarily, but the biggest thing that boxing did to itself is what Dana White vowed not to do from the beginning. As a lifelong boxing guy himself, the best fighters are going to fight each other in the UFC. We're not going to piss off our fans like boxing did. And that's where boxing killed itself. You never saw the great fighters fighting each other, at least as often as we should have. We missed out on a lot of great fights over money, over greed, and over padded records where guys are 102, but they fought janitors, accountants, and freaking street sweepers on their way up.
Well, I think part of what happened to boxing is the curtain got pulled back and the wizard was just a little man. Because when Mike Tyson was around, when Muhammad Ali was around, the baddest dude on the planet was that guy, right? It was the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing, and we all knew it. That's the way we promoted it. There was no question in our minds. And now, that's not the toughest guy in the world. I don't even know who the heavyweight champion is right now, but I can tell you it's the baddest man.
Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua,
but we know now as a society and as the world, as a species, that's not the toughest guy. That's not the baddest man on the planet. He's just a boxer. And so I think that has had a lot to do with boxing as well. And yes, and look, promoters and everything. I mean, the entertainment industry, period, right? Promoters are largely scumbags, right? They're not all that way. Do not get me wrong. I've worked with some incredible,
some good ones. There are some good ones. And I will say this: I'm not talking about the Roy Jones guys either. Keith Veltri always paid. It was always when he said he was going to pay. So that's not you, Keith. Calm down. I know he hates the other promoters who are that way too. So I didn't want to make it seem like I was taking shots at Roy or Keith, his partner, because I didn't have any bad experience with them, and I saw them pay everyone they said they were going to pay. So,
well, I mean, look, we've seen. Look, MMA's had the same shit go down. The KTFO's not in the sport anymore. For those that remember that, and Eve Edwards, Catch Me on the Street. This is crazy shit that went on in MMA. But, and look.
And the gangsters running Pride. You had the Japanese gangsters running Pride in the back, and the fighters were afraid they were going to get killed in the building.
Well, I mean, you just had smaller promotions, where fighters didn't get paid and stuff. But look, like I said, that's the entertainment industry, right? That's the reason why Led Zeppelin copyrighted all those songs that they didn't write, is because artists are screwed by promoters. And the record industry, the same thing. It's the same thing in boxing, same thing in all professional sports, any entertainment business. Let's just put it that way. Any entertainment business, because I still can't wrap my head around why the hell LeBron needs an agent. Why the hell are you paying anybody anything, right? Yeah. What, you don't need anybody to promote you, LeBron. You don't need an agent. They'll come to you, I promise. You can cut out that that 30% tomorrow, man. But it's the entertainment business. It's the sports business. You always have these latch on people, promise everything and you're going to get these huge paydays and we're going to do this. And then they never deliver. And you end up wasting your time and energy and sometimes take losses and it hurts your career in the process. And they don't give a damn about you. They're on to the next mark. They're on to the next con. And so you gotta be careful. But yeah, boxing, I think getting back on point, I know I kind of left the subject. I think that they've suffered a reality check, as we all know now that the secret's out. You're not the baddest person on the planet. Stipe will take you down and own you, period. And probably, whenever you get down to it, there are probably welterweights who would take down a heavyweight boxer and own them in an actual fight. And so that's been taken off of it. And then like we brought up, there's no stars, man. There's no Muhammad Ali. There's no Mike Tyson. There's no rivalries. There's nothing. We're having to pick, fighters out of past generations and throw them in there and hope that they sell because there is literally no up and comers. MMA doesn't have that, but MMA is different. I don't feel like the promotions ever pushed a fighter bigger than the promotion, except for maybe Conor and then borderline Ronda, right? But I felt like boxing has always done that. Like a promotion latches onto a fighter and then they run that career out. I got the fighter and they hold negotiations. We're not going to fight. It's got to be for our belt. Our belt's not on the line. It's got to be 10 rounds, 12 rounds. It's all bullshit, right? Where you don't have that in MMA. You just don't. First of all, the promotions don't. And I think that was probably smart on Dana, the UFC, and all the promotions' part. Just don't do cross promotions, man. That doesn't hurt. That doesn't help your promotion. I can tell you that. It never helps your promotion. One of your promotions gets a black eye when that happens. And I think the UFC learned that when they sent Chuck Liddell over to the Pride tournament and he came back wrapped up by Rampage. And so we can build stars. And we know that losses happen, right? And so, we're just going to talk about Cody Garbrandt headlining this weekend's event. Former champion, man. Cody's a badass. But we know that he lost those fights in a row. It doesn't matter. In boxing, that's everything. Perception is everything. And so I feel like the whole perception of boxing is a con. The way they present it to me. Floyd Mayweather's not a bad man. Floyd Mayweather is an extremely good boxer with good defensive skills. But, man, there's a billion people on the planet that'll beat the shit out of him. So.
No one has. And, now he's fighting Logan Paul.
Not in boxing.
Not in boxing, and that's what he's, And Ryan Cavanaugh's story itself is interesting. Triller is obviously a lot more than just boxing. It's the web's second largest digital entertainment and music platform. So he had artists like Snoop, The Weeknd, Lil Wayne, Kendrick Lamar on there. Trump calling for a TikTok ban actually really helped them a lot in their growth because they used, Triller used it to do that. So Ryan Cavanaugh's story, though, he was a huge Hollywood producer for a long time. He did Bradley Cooper and Leonardo DiCaprio through his bachelor party. You think about this. He was one of the guys who really broke a lot of ground, changed the way movies were financed. And if you look at the list of the movies that he has been a part of, Jeff, just take a look at Ryan Cavanaugh. We don't have time on this show to go through that. But he was a big-time mogul. He was talking a lot of shit about people, very brash. I revolutionized the industry. I am Hollywood. He's got a lot of Dana White in him. He's perfect to be a promoter. But he literally burned through $100 million and went bankrupt, right? He went bankrupt in Relativity. That was the name of his company. So if you think about his company, Relativity, Triller's his comeback. Triller's his big comeback. Been at the top of the mountain in Hollywood. He's worked on the films. I'll tell you some of the films he produced. Starting at Talladega Nights, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry, The Bank Job, Maid of Honor, Duplicity. Let me see, Zombieland. Let's see, Robin Hood, The Fighter. Remember The Fighter? That was a pretty good movie. Let's see, The Immortals. The list goes on and on and on. There's so many big-time movies that he was a big part of, and then the company went bankrupt. So there's a big story with Ryan Cavanaugh there, and this is his comeback story. So losing Jake Paul, they're trying to go legit in boxing, and he did say this. He's leaning toward making the next event a pure boxing event with actual real boxing and no circus fights.
Well, we'll see how well that sells, because that's the problem, right, Jim? That's the rock and the hard place that boxing's stuck in. is you do a legit event with world-class boxers, right? You run it professionally. There's none of those shenanigans in the broadcaster's booth. There's not people performing and arm wrestling and craziness going on, and nobody watches. You know, and so that's the problem with boxing right now. And so you have to put together these freak show things to get people to tune in. You know, and I'll say this about Triller. As much as a freak show of those things where they did usually have one legitimate fight on there, you know, so they're trying to use, you know, to promote the actual boxer. But honestly, it didn't work, Jim, because I couldn't tell you who that boxer was on any of the cards. I could the night of the fight. But looking back on it, man, I only know Jake Paul. I know Tyson. I know Askren got knocked out, and I know that there was crazy shit that went on with Ric Flair.
This guy was $1 billion producer, man, and he knows how to entertain. So on a Hollywood side, that's what you're going to see. Think about this. He was on Fortune's 40 under 40 most influential people in business in 2010, and he was on Forbes Future 400 ones to watch. He's been at the very top of the entertainment. I agree with the angry guy on the left. That's Jeff. And then someone also wrote, why does Jeff have black hair on top and white hair on the bottom?
I've had a gray streak right in the top. I'll talk about it. I have a gray streak right at the top of my head that I've had since I was 13. Ladies love gray hair when you're in high school and college. You know, it's a conversation piece. It's an icebreaker. Hey, how come you look like that lead singer of Wasp? I don't know, man. I just got a cool birthmark on top of my head.
Blackie Lawless, right? Is that Blackie Lawless?
And now at my age, I'm just going completely gray. I mean, look at the beard. Everything goes gray.
Your hair doesn't look gray at all. Your head doesn't look gray one bit.
Yeah, if I put it down, it does. But I have a gray hair on my friggin' arm, and I didn't even know that happened to people. I pulled it out. I had a gray hair on my arm, and I don't even want to talk about what the hell that's going to lead to. But god dang, man, I looked down. I'm like, I have a gray. So I guess all of our body hair goes gray, Jim. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess, in the next decade.
Yeah, I don't really look at my body hair too much these days because, there's a lot of grays popping up everywhere, man. I'm wondering if I have grays in my armpits, but, it's part of getting older. But, Jeff, it's crazy, man. This is a big time choice for Jake Paul to get 10 million. Mm-hmm. Think about this. To be a YouTube star and get 10, someone wrote it in the chat. They're bigger stars now than Mike Tyson. And I agree, the Paul brothers, they're bigger stars right now in today's world than Mike Tyson. Think about where we are as a planet, as we hurtle toward nowhere in a black hole of the abyss in America, if you believe this, all the crap that's going on in the world. But Jake Paul getting 10 million plus upside from ShowTime to actually really box. I would like to see him compete and try to take that path and see how good he actually is. How far can he advance in the sport? I wouldn't bet against him. He's got balls of steel. I know he can box. I want to see how good he is. I want to see him fight real boxers. I actually do now. Congratulations, Jake. You made me want to see you get your ass kicked, but you also make me want to see you fight a real boxer to see if you're actually any fucking good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know the Paul brothers. Because it's all fun and games now. And you can say I want to be a boxer, I want to be a boxer, I want to be a boxer, but then to actually do it and to compete on a high level, that's not entertainment anymore. That's dedication, that's lifestyle changes. That's not what they're doing right now. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't know the guys. The other brother looks to be in better shape to me than Jake. But yeah, man, look, ShowTime signed them. ShowTime believes in them, and I'm sure that they're going to do well. You're just going to have to be real careful on who you give them, in my opinion. But like I said, I don't know any boxers anyway. I guess that Jake's a cruiserweight. I couldn't tell you one cruiserweight on the planet, and so they could get the best guy or the worst guy. I'm not going to know any different. So, and most people won't. I mean, that's like I said about boxing. I don't even keep up with I'll keep up with golf, right? I'll check out SportsCenter and check out other sports. I literally don't keep up with anything in boxing. And I used to be hardcore boxing fan, and now I don't know
who any of them are, Jeff. I don't know. I'm looking at the top 10 cruiserweights in the world right now. I have no idea who any of them are. Absolutely nobody. No idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten bad as far as marketing, man. I mean, they're just not marketing people. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, I couldn't tell you 5 boxers in the world right now active.
Myris Briedis, that's one.
Yeah, and I don't.
Riatis
Yeah, I don't know.
Makabu. No idea.
Yeah, because we're not talking about Oscar De La Hoya and Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. We all know those people. They aren't from this era. I'm talking about
And
this
we all
era.
knew Hopkins and Tarver and Jermaine Taylor and Winky
Yeah.
Wright. I mean, I know all, but we don't know. I mean, these guys, I don't know any of these guys. None of them.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not only did we know heavyweights, we knew heavyweights way down the list. We knew heavyweights way down the list. We were like, whoa, watch out for James Toney. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I couldn't tell you one. I mean, is Pacquiao retired or is he still fighting? I don't know. That's about the last time I
He's
watched
still fighting. Supposedly still
go.
fighting, but him and Floyd. But look, and Triller's saying they want GSP to fight De La Hoya, and now they're offering $1 million to the UFC to get them to do that. They already have a deal in place. I mean, he's saying $1 million to a charity of Danish choice to allow GSP to fight for money in boxing, not UFC. And I don't want to see GSP fight De La Hoya. Why don't these boxers fight another fucking boxer? Or why don't they have some balls and fight in a cage and fight an MMA fight? They want to go around beating up MMA guys who aren't really boxers. Why don't you fight them in an MMA fight or make one round MMA? Just one round, Oscar, so your pretty face can get completely rearranged for life. I mean, I don't want to see a boxing match between these boxers trying to beat up on MMA fighters to prove that they're tougher, because they're not tougher. You said it for the Paul Askren fight. Ben Askren's not a boxer. He's as much of a boxer as I am at this point. I mean, maybe a little better, honestly speaking, and I'm exaggerating, of course. But when I look at what Triller's trying to do here, he's trying to say on one hand that he wants to go legit. Look, that's why I can't take Bellator seriously. That and what they just did to Goldie for that gas bag on Showtime. But I'll say this. I cannot take Bellator seriously because they lost me when they rolled out Hoist and Shamrock and Dada and all those people. It's not a fucking sport. They lose me, and they can never take that back. Triller can never take that back, and Bellator can never take it back. They can't. I'll watch Ryan Bader fight. I'll watch Lima fight. I'll watch Pitbull fight, but I will not watch fucking Bellator. I'll watch a specific fighter here and there in Bellator. I will not watch a Bellator show just because it's Bellator, and it's strictly because of the old man circus fights. So I'm vehemently opposed to those to begin with, and I will never watch GSP fight De La Hoya. I'd rather watch De La Hoya's pay-per-view lingerie show if he ever puts one on.
Yeah, look, I have a different view, and GSP has a different view. Why can't GSP box and make a few $1 million? It's sparring, right? It's an easy payday for him. He could give two shits if he wins or loses. It gives mixed martial artists who didn't cash in their career as mixed martial artists. Now GSP's not one of them, but he didn't cash in like he would have if he came around today. And so I don't see the problem with him boxing Oscar De La Hoya because we all know what it is, right? I mean, we all know what it is. Go over there, make your money, and box. I don't think it. And look, they've all had freak shows. The UFC can't take back CM Punk. They can't take back. I mean, there's been some other ones, man. I've got to
Kimbo on Tough.
Well, yeah, Kimbo on Tough, and then I mean the guy that beat Sean Gannon, the police officer, the Boston police officer that beat Kimbo before, the first guy to beat Kimbo, they gave him a shot, right? And so you can't take those back, man, and you can't take back Hoist Gracie coming back to fight Matt Hughes. I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, promoters are going to promote, and if they have an idea that they think is going to make money, they're going to throw it out there, whether it damages the overall product or not. Because they don't think it's going to. I'm fine with Bellator. We just had a former Bellator champion fight for the championship in the UFC.
Undeservedly.
Gaethje's outside. Well, I mean, people.
After one fight. And I love Michael Chandler. That's not a shot at him. And look, my shot at Bellator, they do have legitimate fighters. Pitbull's as good as anybody in the UFC, Patricio Pitbull. You know what I mean? Douglas Lima is as good as anybody in the UFC, in my opinion, or close to it. But I also don't want to see Ben Askren fight Jake Paul on Kamaru Usman fight Jake Paul on Showtime. Ali's talking about that, and they're negotiating with the UFC, saying it'd be the biggest fight of all time. And now that Kamaru Usman Jake Paul fight can be on Showtime. I would never let my champion of one of the baddest men in the sport put on boxing gloves and risk a chance to get beat by some guy like that, or any boxer. hey, you want to take on my guys now? If I'm Dana White, anybody who's under a UFC contract, fuck you. I'm not giving them permission to box. And I'm not saying fuck you, Jeff. I'm saying fuck you as Dana to whoever comes and says, I want one of your fighters to box. Fuck you. GSP's under UFC contract. I would never let him do it. I would never let Kamaru fight Jake Paul. There is no upside for Dana White other than money in that equation. And last time you checked, Dana White and the UFC have enough money for 26,000 lifetimes. They're valued at over $10 billion now, so don't need the money. I'm sure if it came down to it and the money and everything was right, it might happen. But there's no way I would let my fighters box boxers because they're going in there overmatched in a sport that's not theirs. And I just don't. And they're using the UFC to build their brand and say their guys are tougher than UFC fighters. And it sucks. It's stupid. And I want no part of it.
Well, and this is why fighters need a union, right? So you don't have a boss from 5 years ago telling you how much fucking money you can make today.
Well, you're still under contract, though. He's still under contract.
No, I don't care if you're still under contract, man. Yeah, I mean,
you can't fight anywhere. You got to live up to your contract. GSP came back and said, I'm fighting more than once, and he lied. He only fought once.
Man.
Dana's real quick, Jeff, just let me. Dana's condition for GSP
is the one that wants it. You're
right, but Dana's condition to GSP was to come back and not be a one and done. You're not coming back to fight Bisping for the belt if you're only going to fight one fight. So he signs a multi-fight deal so he can come back and fight Bisping. He wins the belt. I'm getting to it. He wins the belt, and then he doesn't fight again. So he lied to Dana and said he was going to fight more than once. I wouldn't let him fight either. He signed that contract so he couldn't come back and just take the belt and then ride off again.
Indentured servitude, man. I don't.
It's not. He's under contract. How is it indentured servitude?
You can call it.
How?
Because he's preventing him from making a payday, Jim.
He's under contract.
Making a payday.
He's under contract. If I'm under contract with MMA Weekly and ESPN offers me a deal and MMA Weekly says no, I can't go.
Fucking talk over me, Jim. God damn, dude, talk over me.
You're talking over me too. What's the difference?
When's the last fucking time he's fought? He's holding GSP hostage. He's not allowing GSP to make money. And you're okay with that because the UFC has enough money. Well, what about GSP? Does he not deserve to cash in on his fucking name? Does he not deserve to cash in on the sport that he grew? Does he not get to get a payday at 40 years old? No, because Dana says no. And we're all going to clap and like applaud for Dana. That is not a fucking asset of Dana White. That is a personality flaw for Dana White. GSP should be in that boxing ring, making his damn money. You know, everybody else is making money around here. And it's not up to a fight promotion to protect fucking fighters, right? Nobody needs protected. Who cares if an MMA guy loses in a boxing ring or a boxing guy loses in an MMA fight? Nobody needs to protect these guys. All this image bullshit. It's all about image. GSP can make a lot of money. A lot of money is going to go to charity. It's not going to happen because why? I lied to Dana. I mean, it's just.
I'm under contract. He's under contract.
Yeah, a fighters union is what they need. A fighters union.
Let me ask you one question. How much money would GSP have made in his life without Dana White?
How much money would the UFC have made? How much money would the UFC? Would the UFC have been in Canada? Would they have set records at the Rogers Center? Would they have been the breakout? No, they would not have been. GSP was the star. GSP was the star, right. But because he's not the star now, everybody's like, okay, screw GSP. You know, I mean, Dana.
I'm not saying screw GSP, Jeff.
Like I said, this goes back to exactly what was said by Tony Ferguson. Dana White privilege. That's what this is because Conor McGregor can go box. Right? Just not GSP. So it's not a level playing field. It's not equality.
Well, Conor McGregor boxing Floyd Mayweather. How do you compare Conor Mayweather versus Jake Paul, Kamaru Usman? I mean, really?
I'm comparing a fighter under contract being allowed to box versus a fighter under contract not being allowed to box. And the only difference between it is the name. So
and Dana and the UFC were co-promoters.
Yeah. So
they
it
were
comes back to Dana making
Mayweather
money.
and McGregor.
Yeah. Like I said, well, you can get on that bandwagon for promoters. I don't give a fuck about promoters, man.
Well, he let Ben Askren do it, and he was retired. I think it's image preservation, Jeff. I think, and I'm not. I mean, you can't make it. You're putting words in my mouth, making it sound like I'm against the athletes, and I'm not. And I've waited 5 minutes to respond here, and I can't say a word. But I'm not against the fighters. I'm against the circus act, and I'm against having my brand be a part of the circus act. I'm against UFC fighters fighting in these circus fights, getting beat up by shitty boxers, and I'm against that. I think it lowers the value of the brand. In a lot of people's eyes, we're in a country full of dumbasses. It lowers the value of the brand. People think Jake Paul is tougher than Ben Askren because of that fight. They do.
Who
You
cares
don't. You
what
have a
people
brain.
think?
I have a brain.
No,
but I'm saying,
who gives
you
a
know, I
damn?
mean,
What-
I'm not against GSP. I'm against GSP fighting Oscar De La Hoya. 100%.
I'm not. I'm not at all. I mean, I'm not at all. You know, Ronda can go do the WWE, and like I said, Ben Askren can go box. Conor McGregor can go box, but GSP you can't. It's just bullshit. It's total bullshit. And I don't think there's any way people can justify it, right? I mean, certain people have certain privileges and certain people don't. And GSP
Shouldn't have
right
signed the
now
contract.
is
It's a
being,
non-compete.
well,
He
that's
signed
easy
it.
to say.
GSP
Well,
is not
non-compete
being
clauses
held
very
hostage.
rarely
He's
hold up.
under contract. He's not being
Non-compete
held.
clauses are bullshit, dude. Non-compete clauses. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whenever you're trying to stifle my livelihood. Your non-compete clause means about as much as the friggin' paper that it's written on. It doesn't matter, and they've been held up in court after court after court after court after court. So GSP should just sue them, you know, if you ask me, and say I'm going to go box, or just go box and say fuck it, and sue me for breach of contract. You can't hold a contract over somebody's head for the rest of their damn life, and that's been held up. Period. Now, whether GSP wants to go, and this is why we need the Ali Act. This is why we need a union. You know, the promoters aren't going to dictate my livelihood. It's not even the same fucking sport. You know, I mean, you're going to try to tell me that I can't like go race a race car because I'm a professional basketball player? You know, I can't play golf. I can't enter a golf tournament because I'm a baseball player. You know, this is a total different sport. This isn't a competition. You know, this isn't boxing isn't competing with MMA. And so just go fight GSP. Let Dana call Dana's bluff. See if he sues you.
Independent contractors. Independent contractors,
they
but they're
treat them
under
like
contract for a certain number of fights.
Well, like I said, you're picking. They're picking and choosing on who those stipulations apply to, right?
But if they don't have contracts, what am I fight one fight for the UFC, then go to Bellator because they pay me more next time, then go to the PFL the next time after that, and just fight by fight, one by one? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you'll have more freedom if you did that. Yeah, I'm not.
And John, that's the same thing's happening with John Jones. It might be a while. Dana said, "I don't care if he fights again," and he means it. If he doesn't fight in the UFC,
Dana doesn't care if he fights again. Dana doesn't care if he fights again. He doesn't. He doesn't care. But so don't sell me the bullshit about seeing the best fights in the world, right? I mean, you know, we talk out of both sides of our mouth when we talk about the UFC, man. Oh, the UFC is going to give us the best fights in the world. John Jones isn't going to get a fight. Should have signed the contract. You know, I mean, it's the fight game. It's an ugly fucking sport. And GSP should be allowed to box. And John Jones should be fighting for the heavyweight title. We're not having any of that, though. None of that's going to happen. You know, none of that is going to happen because whose hand gets in the kitty jar? That's what it comes down to. But it is what it is, man. You know, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't really care because you know, I don't have a dog in either one of those fights. Boxing could go away and my life doesn't change one bit. And
same
probably
here.
the UFC, you know, and probably the UFC as well. I mean, there's other fight promotions. They're not.
Jeff, we have a great comment. I just want to throw this up here because we've never fought on the show, really. John Miller says, white men arguing. Why do we have to be white men arguing? Why can't we just be men arguing? And if we're really being 2021, why do we have to be identified as men? Why aren't we just people arguing? I mean, we could just go all the way down this shithole.
Well, it's like I said, you don't. It's a double standard. You're treating people, not you. The UFC are treating people differently. They're
because they can cut you anytime, but you can't break the relationship anytime. But they can. That's for sure.
Certain fighters on the roster are given certain freedoms that other fighters on the roster are not. You know, which is the definition of wrong. And I'm not going to applaud it. I think that GSP fought his time in the UFC. He
Do you think everyone should be treated equal? Every fighter?
Yeah, I'm not saying they should be paid equally, but if I tell you can't do something, and I tell another fighter that he can, yeah, man, that's That's bullshit.
But that's every industry in the world from day one. That's Hollywood. That's sports. I mean, if you're a star, you get different treatment, and you should.
I get that.
You think Michael Jordan should have been treated the same as Horace Grant and Tony Kukoc and Steve Kerr? Hell no.
Michael Jordan walks through that door. I'm treating him the same as if it's my neighbor. And that's the end.
It's true. But I mean, if you're the owner of the team, and you have, I mean, everybody, there's star treatment. The better you are, the more money you bring.
I know.
Of course, you're going to get special treatment, and you deserve it.
I know. Look. I understand it. I know the country I live in. I know the world that I live in. I know that I have to fight a former UFC champion and use the microphone to call out a CEO, and I might get my car. I understand that privilege.
Beneil Dariush.
It's all over the place. It's all over.
At least they can't say that's white privilege. It's fight privilege. Beneil Dariush got his Tesla.
It's celebrity privilege, you know. I know.
He got a loaner.
What I'm saying is that if I've been waiting on my Tesla since March, like Beneil Dariush, and I still don't have my Tesla, I'm kind of like, wow, Elon, you're a dick. You know?
Yeah, fuck you. Give me my deposit back.
Yeah, where's my car? And so, I don't like the privilege. And no, I don't. I think everybody should be treated equally when it comes to opportunity. Pay? No. You know? But yeah, man, if I'm allowed to do something, then you're allowed to do something. I think that's fundamental. I think that's just fundamental humanity. It's whenever we don't want to do that things start getting crazy, right? But if I were GSP, I'm dead serious about that. I'd just go box. Just go box. Let it play out in court. Go box.
Yeah, we don't know what he's going to do. But, I mean, look, he also didn't have a gun to his head when he signed the contract, and he came back, and Dana said, you're not coming back and taking a belt and retiring after one fight because then I don't have a legitimate champion. So he chose to sign the multi-fight deal because those were Dana's terms. He agreed to the terms, and now he doesn't want to abide by them because he wants to box. And Dana is saying, I'm rightfully so, if you're boxing and I'm not getting a big cut of it, you ain't boxing. And Dana has every right to do that. I believe he has every right. I'm a business owner too. I'm not a good business owner,
I don't care,
but I know I have a right as a business owner. If I have someone under contract for a certain number of events and they want to go work for someone else who's a competitor on any level, even if you want to argue that they're not a competitor, they are a competitor because anybody that's selling pay-per-views is a competitor to the UFC. Let's be real. So if they're a competitor and you want to go pad the bottom line of one of my competitors, and people think the UFC is just this big bully, but they've protected that brand with their lives. Look what Dana's doing with the piracy. They've done it with sports bars. They've protected those three letters. And we've had content pulled down over the years as they've protected those letters. They've banned all the websites to protect those letters.
We have not.
They've banned reporters.
Hold on. We've never retracted a story in the history of MMA Weekly. Not one. We have never retracted
a story.
Or pulled a story.
Never.
I've never pulled a story. Hell no. You call me and tell me to pull a story, then the phone is hung up faster than I answered it. And I don't care who's on the other end. You're not gonna push that weight. You're not gonna bully me around. You know, I'm not GSP.
So you think there's a chance this happens? You think GSP will just do it?
If I were GSP, I would. I'm 40 years old. I'm retired. I'm retired. At what point am I not retired? You know, when I retire from my job, I'm retired. My job can't call me back up in 3 years and say, hey, Jeff, I saw you write a local article in the newspaper. We're going to sue you. It just doesn't happen that way. That's what's happening now. You know, you're retired from the sport. You're no longer with the fight promotion. Oh, but we have a contract that you signed years ago that you only fought one time. You haven't fought in years, and you have no intention on fighting in years. We don't have any intentions on giving you a fight, but you can't go make a living outside because you once made apparently the mistake of signing your name on that dotted line. I think that's ludicrous. I think.
And there's also a history there. You know the history between Dana and GSP better than I do. I mean, there's not good history there.
It's fine history. GSP was the biggest star in the fight promotion.
Made him a lot of money, but personally, there's been a lot of friction and tension between those two.
Over sponsors. You know, I mean, GSP, like I said, you know, the UFC wants to sign sponsors and force fighters to wear that sponsor and kill the fighters' ability to get sponsors on their own. You know, I mean, I tell you what, it's kind of awkward for me to wear Venom when I got a contract with Converse. You know, a little awkward. You know, and so they make contracts with other things harder. Like, how the hell am I supposed to sign a contract with Converse whenever I have to wear Venom, you know, or Reebok? I mean, how the hell am I supposed to do that? And so it's not just the fight contract; it's everything that goes along with it. Your image, the clothes that you have to wear, and then apparently ever having another job outside of the UFC.
But you think that football players should all be able to wear their own brands for their jerseys? Like Tom Brady's wearing Adidas and Antonio Brown's wearing Nike? I mean, where do you draw the line?
Yeah. Well, you're just going to find them like you did. Who's the quarterback for the Bears? McMahon,
McMahon.
He got fined for wearing the Adidas headband. He showed up the next day wearing the Adidas thing around his neck and the NFL's president name on his headband. He took a $5,000 fine. He took a $5,000 fine for that.
Yep, he did.
We
need more Jim McMahons in the world, Jeff. We need more Jim McMahons in the world. But you're fighting in the UFC octagon at a UFC event under the UFC banner, and the UFC has a contract for their uniforms. You wear their uniforms or you don't fight. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I don't understand why people do. Ryan Bader lost a ton of money when that happened. He went to Bellator.
That's why.
Made his money back. The sponsor revenue was never, it was a privilege. It was never a right for a fighter.
Now picture Ryan Bader not being able to go to Bellator. And he's just stuck. He's just stuck out there in Arizona with no fight.
But the difference with Ryan Bader is he fought to the end of his contract. He fought out his contract and he was free to go. GSP hasn't.
They released him.
Now, I will say it's completely different. He's not trying to fight an MMA fight, and maybe that's the argument that you could win with me about this, is he doesn't have an MMA contract waiting for him. So he's fighting a boxing match, not an MMA fight. If it were an MMA fight, a lot of people would say, hey, for sure, he's under contract, can't fight for another MMA promotion, but it's not MMA, but the contracts clearly state any combat sport. So that, if you want to, I think that's the argument for anyone who thinks GSP should be able to do it, is that it's not an MMA fight, and he's under contract with an MMA organization.
BJ Penn did it. BJ Penn just said, screw it, I'm going to go fight in K1 because that's where the best fighters in the world are, and I want to go fight them. And then he was under UFC contract. And then that's why that.
What happened with that? How did that one end out?
BJ Penn came back and held the lightweight title and went on a beautiful run in the UFC. That's how that played out.
Right. But I mean, like with the whole the lawsuit side of that and the money side of it.
No, they stripped him of his lightweight title, and BJ Penn said, you can't strip me of what I earned. That's my lightweight title. And the UFC said, no, it's actually not a title at all. It's a promotional tool to sell fights. And BJ was like, okay, fine. And came back to the UFC, won back the token, the shiny token, and fought out his career until he got beat down by Frankie Edgar.
There you go. Ken Pishna, 10 plus years editor for MMA Weekly. True that. We've never pulled down a story at MMA Weekly because the promoter didn't like it. We will add update with their side added in, but we haven't been asked to pull anything. We were part of the infamous UFC MMA media ban at one point, but we didn't remove or change our coverage to return to credentialed coverage. We kept doing things on the up and up, and it showed. Absolutely. And I'm proud to be a part of a team like this. But the UFC has banned people. They've banned reporters. They've banned media members. They've kicked people out. I mean, look at Ariel Helwani breaking a story that Dana didn't like. I mean, Dana's got a track record here, man. If you piss him off, he's going to make your life miserable on some level. And GSP has pissed him off. If he liked GSP, maybe he wouldn't be this way. If things had been, I don't know. All I know is he has a right to do it when you're under contract. If you sign the contract with these terms, your name is there. Your signature is there. You agreed to it. You agreed to it. And you know what I mean? I just don't see how.
I know, but look, just because you can do something doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. I mean, so we can argue about the legalities of it and whether or not he's under contract. But no question, man, GSP's 40 years old. He's never going to fight MMA again. He's given his time to MMA. He's got a huge payday that he can make in a freaking sparring match against an old, washed up, likely addict, and everybody's like, nope, you can't do that. You can't do that because it's going to tarnish our image. No, it's not. It's not going to tarnish anybody's image. Like I said, I just don't like it. I don't like it, and that's not showing loyalty. That's not looking out for the fighters in the fight game. It's not even looking out for you. I mean, the UFC has nothing to lose and nothing to gain. They're just making sure nobody else can gain, and that's what I don't like about it. And look, as far as I'm not an employee of the UFC. UFC can ban who they want. It's their venue, right? But I'm a fighter in a sport that it's done, that it's past, it's over. And the UFC's still holding him to a contract that they didn't hold Ben Askren to. You know, Ben Askren still had fights in his contract when he was allowed to go fight Jake Paul. You know, that situation is exactly the same. And
little different when maybe one of your top legends gets knocked out by Oscar De La Hoya. I don't know. I mean, it's brand preservation too on some level. Jeff, I'm going to give you the last word on that one. I mean, I love you, brother. We have a little fun on this show, but you know, we get passionate about things, guys, and we hope you appreciate that. That's what this is all about. It's definitely a complicated thing, and there's a lot of shit going on, and the UFC has sat on top of that mountain for a long time. They're trying to keep themselves there. I mean, no one's catching them at this point, but great job, Jeff. That's a lot of fun, man. We have a lot of people in the chat having some fun. YouTubers signing fights while the boxers take 18 months to sign a binding contract. RIP. Perfect ending by Ranga right there. That's Jeff Cain. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Jeff, I got Cody. 3rd round, TKO. What about you, real quick?
Oh, I take Cody earlier. I take him in round 2. Don't sleep on Rob Font, though, at all. I just feel like Cody's got power in both hands, and I feel like he's just going to be more reserved in this fight, not go all gung-ho. Cody Garbrandt by knockout round 2.
All right, we'll be here at 4 o'clock on Saturday, Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern for the main card streaming live on MMA Weekly. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, like, ring the bell, and follow us on all the forms of social media, plus MMAWeekly.com. Great coverage wall-to-wall with Jeff, Ken, and the whole team. Hunter, we got a big announcement to make right now. UFC 263 will be live all day right outside the arena in Glendale, Arizona for Diaz Edwards and those 2 title fights with Adesanya Vittori and Figueiredo Moreno. For Jeff Cain, for our entire crew at MMA Weekly, Jim Grieshaber saying thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate you today on the show. A slow day, but a busy day and a big day. Keep it right here on MMA Weekly, the most trusted source of news and entertainment in MMA for almost 20 years. Keep your game tight and your mind right, fight fans. We're out.